We're glad you've joined us today for the Big and Tall Show. Mark and Tom are ready for another discussion about what it takes to live big and tall in your faith in Jesus Christ. Christians should be encouragers, and we're here to give you that boost for the week. Mark, Tom, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jay, and welcome everyone back to the Big and Tall Show podcast. We're thankful to have you listening with us for another episode. Here we are in Season 3, Episode 5. And Mark, they keep ticking on by so quickly. How are you today?
Doing great, Tom. Good to hear from you and hope everybody's doing well. And welcome once again to the Big and Tall Show podcast. And we are here every week trying to help you and trying to help ourselves, Tom, stand big and tall in our faith. Let's jump right in to our episode today, and we got several different topics and segments that we're going to talk about, and then we've got of course as we're doing this season, a restaurant review, a place that we have been, and we either liked it or we didn't, or we'll just give our take on it, but that'll be coming up in just a few minutes. Today, Tom, I want to start off talking about, and this is I guess this is an interesting fact segment, or a did you know type segment. And I am preaching through the book of Genesis. On Sunday mornings, I'm doing the Bible class, and I'm also doing the sermon. Both of those are focused on the book of Genesis as we start the new year, and this is going to go on for several months. But as I'm working my way through this, there are so many interesting things that I could share. But anyway, I want to share about Noah and the flood. This, of course, comes from Genesis chapter 6. And I think one thing that's very interesting to me, well, there's two things I want to point out very quickly. We imagine the flood, and we've told our children this story, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we imagine the flood as this floating zoo that Noah called all the animals together, and this was just a floating petting zoo, right. In this ark for a year, and we decorate the baby's room with the ark and the animals and the rainbow, and we have stuffed animals, and we put them in a boat, and we say it's the Noah and the ark, and there's nothing wrong with this. But the story of Noah and the ark from Genesis 6 is really not just a fun story of a floating zoo. It is a story of death, of sin, of punishment, of destruction of the whole entire world. And, I think that's really what we need to focus on when we think about Noah and the ark, that it was God's punishment to the world. But anyway, I wanted to share this in my studies and researching and coming up with a lesson. I found that the length and the width and the height of the boat of the ark that Noah prepared, that God told him to prepare, is the perfect ratio for a ship that is carrying a lot of weight. Even today, scientists, engineers, even today, and evidently it's a 6-to-1 ratio, but they still use this ratio for cargo ships, for cruise ships, anything that's going to be carrying, a lot of weight. They use this same ratio that God set forth, that God told to Noah. He said in Genesis 6, verse 15, this is how you shall make it. The length shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Now that is 450 feet, a cubit being around 18 inches, 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. That's a 6-to-1, evidently, ratio. And this is the perfect size for any vessel to survive in open water. And, that's no coincidence, Tom.
No, it's not.
God knew exactly what he was doing. And I love those 8 words in Genesis 6:15 that God told Noah, and this is how you shall make it. And then he gave, it should be of gopher wood. Here's the size of it. Here are the number of decks. Here's the number of windows, the number of doors. And this is, which was one window, one door. This is how you shall make it. I love that God gave him the specific, really it was his plan of salvation. And, that makes me think, what God has told us in his word in the New Testament under the new covenant that we're living under, it's no accident either.
Right.
It is the perfect plan to save mankind. And he told us, this is what you should do. Just like he told Noah, this is how you should make it. Here are the requirements. If you want this boat to float, if you want to survive the flood, this is what you do. And, Genesis 6 and verse 22, thus Noah did according to all that God commanded him, so he did. That's why he survived, because of the grace of God and because of the work and the faith that he had. And it's the same with us today in our Christian lives. God tells us this is what you must do. This is your plan of salvation. And we've got to do exactly as he commanded us to do, and we will be saved. So anyway, I thought that was interesting that, some thousands of years later, this is still sort of the model of the shape and the width and the height of the boat that we still use today.
Yeah. Mark, I have not ever traveled over to, modern day Israel and Jerusalem, Bethlehem, any of those areas. And I would like to, just because people say that, the archaeology really brings things to life. You have a better understanding. Yeah. But what we consistently see is that time after time after time, when we have new archaeological finds, when we have new discoveries, what do? They continually confirm that what God's word has always said. And you're spot on right there. When we look at the design that God had of, hey, you're going to need a seaworthy vessel that's going to keep you and your family and these animals safe. And here's the exact plan for it. And like you said, even in today's modern times, the design is something that we still use. And along those same lines, there are some fascinating things in nature that we as people have stolen the idea of what God designed, and like the wings of an airplane, the airfoil design. We stole that from birds' wings, which that makes sense.
That's right.
And, the Navy has toyed around with some different types of coatings or skins on the undersides of big ships. And one of the things that they have found, and I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but when you look at big whales, they've got big, huge barnacle growths on them and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But sharks, the way that sharks were designed, they have what are actually, they call them denticles. They almost look like teeth on their skin. You have to look under a microscope to see them, but they are this incredible wavy textured scale that you can't see with the naked eye. You can feel it. If you feel a shark, you put your hand down one end from nose to tail. It's very, very slick and smooth. If you go the other direction, it almost feels like sandpaper. And because of their design of that coating on their skin, barnacles cannot grow on shark skin. And so the Navy, which spends countless amounts of dollars, not only in wasted fuel because of inefficiency and how those boats or those ships go through the water with all the different growths on them, if we can build a ship that barnacles cannot grow on, man, we're more efficient, we're safer. And so, once again, I'm just making the point that we continually, throughout time, have always proved God to be right. It never fails. Yeah. It never fails. And
that's right.
Anyway. Hey, Mark, I wanted to ask you a question here. If you were someone who, grew up in our area And I said, hey, there's a college around here, and they've got this really cool thing where this eagle flies around the stadium before games. You would obviously know exactly, hey, that's Auburn. Or if I said,
that's right.
If I said, hey, Mark, hey, there's a university over here, you'd never believe it, but their mascot, and here we are in the middle of the southeastern United States, and their mascot is an elephant, which aren't indigenous here. They're not found here, but it's an elephant. Of course, everybody around here would know we're talking about Alabama. But what I'm bringing to our attention here is there's something to be said with branding. Like when you see a swoosh on a shoe, you know it's Nike. You know it's not Converse. Does Converse even still exist? Yeah, I guess it does. The All Stars. You know, it's not Adidas. It's Nike. And you think of the golden arches. Hey, it's McDonald's. But branding is something that, you know, people see it and they know what you stand for. They know who you are. They know what you're about. And in Galatians chapter 2, verse 20, we read that Paul says, I have been crucified with Christ, and it's no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. In the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. You know, I'm reminded that as we are followers of Christ, when people see us, the same way that there's an immediate and an absolutely immediate association with Auburn University, if you hear somebody say War Eagle, or you see that, you know, a video of that eagle flying around that stadium before a game. And, you know, the same thing with any number of products that are out there, with the jingles that you hear in commercials or online. You know, do people associate me? Do they associate you or our listeners? When people encounter you at work, at school, as you're at the grocery store, do people associate you or me with Christ? Do they look at you and your behaviors, and is there a brand that you are that is shining through you that says that is a follower of Christ, and because of his example, because of her example, I'd like to know more about Jesus. And you know, I think that's something we need to really be keeping in mind in our daily lives as we're trying to determine how are we going to behave in certain situations, how are we going to handle adversity, how are we going to deal with difficult people who are an issue at times. And are we going to be Christ-like? And is our brand of being a Christian going to be very easy to see in how we conduct ourselves?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And, you know, I think about Matthew 5 and verse 16, and you said the word shining. Yeah. Let your light so shine before men, they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. And so, yeah, what are we portraying? What do we, like you said, what do people see when they see us? And what I hope they see, the brand, of course, that I hope they see is Christ living in me. There's an old poem, Tom, that I have used for years, and it says this. It's a short poem. It says this: you are writing a gospel, a chapter each day, by deeds that you do and by words that you say. Men read what you write, whether faithless or true. What is the gospel according to you? I love that little poem because, you know, we Christians, me and you, other Christians, we may be the only Bible that somebody ever reads.
That's right.
And you know, we're wanting to spread the gospel. We'd love to sit down and have a Bible study with somebody, but you know what? We can share the gospel just by our words, by our actions, by our reactions, and we're writing this gospel every day by the things that we do, and people are seeing that, and not just our close friends and family and associates, but every person we come in contact with. They can tell, hey, they're different, or they should be able to tell they're different. They're separate from the world, and I want to be like them, and I think that's what it's all about.
That's right. That's right. In good days and in bad days, that's
right.
And here we are. We're striving to encourage people to stand big and tall in their faith, and even in the bad days, we still need to be that light for others, and that can be tough, but it's possible. It's what's expected.
And also, let's say this as we sort of segue into our restaurant review, and that is what people see is what they need to get, right?
Right.
We shouldn't be hypocritical. We shouldn't put on an act of being a Christian. When we come in contact with folks, that they should see the real person. They should see the real me, or the real you, the real Christian. We shouldn't go around portraying that we're Christians, and actually we're really not. Because they can see right through that.
Right.
And Tom, that leads to our restaurant review for this week. It's sort of like we're sort of staying in certain areas. Last week we talked about the 5 Points area in Huntsville, and let's travel back to Ardmore, Tennessee.
All right.
And we talked about this. We talked about Ardmore a couple of weeks ago, but when we talked about Mildred Restaurant.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but there is another restaurant in Ardmore, and this is called Rick's Barbecue. Now, I'm pretty sure there are other Rick's Barbecue in other places. I don't know how many, but I have come across some more.
Yeah, I know. I've been to some in Florence, and so yeah, I know there are others.
Right, but you and I both have eaten at Rick's Barbecue, and I think we've even eaten there together. But it is a great place. But let me share a story with you, and then we'll get into our feelings about it. Rachel and I were traveling. This was several years ago, back and forth to Nashville. I was having some surgery, and I was I had a doctor in Vanderbilt. And so we were back and forth from Nashville, and we would go through Ardmore, Tennessee, for my appointments. One afternoon, it was about, 6 or 7 o'clock, maybe on a Tuesday afternoon. We were coming from Nashville. We got out of the Nashville traffic and, finally made it to Ardmore, and we were hungry, and we said, let's stop here at Rick's Barbecue. Well, we pulled in the parking lot, and there was not a space to park. I said, man,
it must be a good place.
Yeah, I said, a Tuesday night, what is going on? So I finally found somewhere to park. We went in, and the place was, full. There was not a seat in Rick's Barbecue, but nobody was saying a word. There was total silence when we walked in the door. And I turned around and looked at Rachel, and I thought, this is the strangest thing I have ever seen. We went to the counter. There was nobody at the counter. Everybody was sitting down. I was trying to look, but there's sort of a wall. If you'll remember, there's sort of a wall between where you order and the seating there at Rick's. And I couldn't hardly see, but I noticed there, nobody was saying anything. And I was starting to get a little concerned. And all of a sudden, I hear somebody with a microphone, and he said, B15. And I turn around, and they've all got bingo cards. They're playing bingo. Evidently, Tuesday night is bingo night.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. And so anyway, we ate. We found a seat. We didn't get a bingo card, but we should have. But that was a very unique experience. But I will say this: I like Rick's Barbecue. They've got a special house sauce that I love. They have these, and I forget what they call them, but they are it's sort of like a potato wedge for a French fry. I guess is sort of what it is. But man, those are great. But they do have very good barbecue. They also have some good ice cream if you're a dessert person. So I highly recommend Rick's Barbecue. And go there on Tuesday night, and you get to play bingo.
You get to play bingo. Mark, I got 2 words for you when it comes to Rick's Barbecue for me. Fruit tea.
There you go.
Have you had their fruit tea?
No.
And I don't know who concocted this. We have it at our family gatherings. Sister-in-law Josie makes it, but it's basically it's sweet tea with some pineapple juice and some orange juice in it.
I got you. Okay.
But it is it is fantastic, and especially hot summer day. And I just go in there. That's about all I buy. I'll get a 32-ounce glass, and I will just stand there at that fruit tea dispenser and drink probably half a gallon. And now I will say this, kind of going back to my theme of my very short segment there of, what is your brand and what do people remember you for? And Mark, I don't want to be hypercritical of Rick's Barbecue, but I do want to make note. You and I are I would consider ourselves to be barbecue connoisseurs. We had a barbecue catering business for years. We have we have won awards at barbecue competitions. I feel like we know our way around a smoker. We have cooked a lot of ribs and brisket and pork butts and here's the thing, Mark. If the most important thing I remember from Rick's Barbecue is fruit tea, I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that is a shining review for their barbecue. Yeah. But I will say it may just be that the fruit tea is that good.
Yeah, it may be. I mean, I give them I'm just going to give them a 7 as far as on the scale of 1 to 10. If I'm passing through Ardmore, I would stop at Rick's Barbecue to eat. But am I going to make a special trip? Now, with Mildred's, I would make a special trip to Ardmore. But with Rick's Barbecue, I don't think I'd make a special trip. That's just my thought on it. That's just my opinion. If you're wanting a good bingo game, I would say go to Rick's.
That's right.
And an average, I guess, barbecue sandwich. But anyway, it is a neat restaurant, and
nice.
I would say, yeah.
Well, I was going to say really, really nice people there. They are fantastic.
Yeah,
people.
Right. And a very nice facility.
Yeah.
Very nice facility as well. But I would say, as far as, your segment as well, tying it in here to our review, is, as I said, don't be hypocritical. What you see is what you get. And sometimes you never know. We didn't know what we were walking into there at Rick's Barbecue on a Tuesday night. So it was different than what we thought it was going to be. And so we still have to be careful about that in our spiritual walk, in our spiritual life.
That's right. And I just want to encourage everyone to exude that light that Christ, that we're to be, that Christ-like example that we're to be. And, at the end of the day, as we're thinking about, are we influencing people for good or for bad? What are people going to remember us for? Are we going to turn someone to Christ, or are we going to turn someone away from Christ by our actions and our behavior, our words? And so I just encourage everyone, stand big and tall in your faith, but be an example for others, and let your light so shine before men that we can glorify Christ, we can glorify our Heavenly Father.
That's right. Tom, have a good rest of the week. Everybody be safe out there, and please like and share the podcast. Let's get it out to as many people as we can, and Lord willing, we'll see y'all back here next week.
This has been The Big and Tall Show, a podcast dedicated to helping you live your life for Jesus Christ. If you have enjoyed today's episode of The Big and Tall Show, please tell your friends and make it easy by sharing the link to our show with them. If you haven't subscribed, this is the time to do just that. And on behalf of Tom and Mark, thank you for listening.